Hello students, this is Damini here, and we were dealing with agro-based industries, doing it on behalf of personal tutors. We have already done in agro-based industries the cotton textiles as well as the sugar industries. We had said the agro-based industries are the industries which depend upon the agricultural produce for their raw material. So we have already dealt with cotton textiles and sugar industries. Now the third one that is left out is the silk industry. Now this industry is a small scale industry. It is not a large scale industry, but it provides employment to nearly 5 million people in the country. So it provides employment to a large number of people, and silk is one of the things large in demand. We are probably one of the largest producers. India is one of the largest producers, though our quality may not be as good as China, but we are the largest producer of silk with complete monopoly of a variety of silk which is grown in Assam, called as Muga silk. So this silk is completely produced in India. When we speak about silk industry, you are familiar that we are speaking about a type of cloth which has shining. The cloth has a shining, a luster into it, and that is how it's a very popular and an expensive type of material. Very popular and expensive material. When we speak about silk industry, you have to know that the process of rearing silk is known as sericulture. Now why we are saying silkworm, actually it is. How exactly this is being made? How exactly silk is made? What they do is, the farmers, they try to rear the silkworm. Silkworm. It requires a specific temperature, a specific humidity. Temperature and humidity are specific, fixed. In that particular fixed temperature and humidity, this silkworm develops. So it is first purchased by people who do this work of sericulture, actually purchase these silkworms, and then these silkworms, when they are in their initial stage, larva stage, before it opens up completely to be a worm, it is fed with certain leaves. Commonly used leaves are the mulberry leaves. These eat these leaves, and then they develop. They develop into a larger form. They grow larger and become pupae. So what we are saying is, we don't have to only develop this worm, we also have to develop the leaves. Now, most commonly used leaves are the mulberry leaves. Other than this, there are other varieties of silk like iri, muga, and tussar, which are not necessarily on these leaves. On these leaves, there is a particular common worm, which is this worm. This worm develops on these mulberry leaves. That means they have those bamboo kind of trays in which these worms are there. Worms are placed, and these keep eating these leaves. They feed on these leaves, and they are vociferous eaters of these. They eat very well these leaves to develop into pupae. And once they develop into this, they wound themselves with a thread-like thing. They start secreting thread-like thing around which they they are completely covered with, and then they developed inside the cocoon. So at this stage, they are boiled and we take out the silk from there. So this is how the silk is being developed. But then the other varieties are not necessarily developing on the mulberry leaves, but rather they are developing on other kind of trees. Now what you have to know is that Karnataka is the state which is the leading producer of silk in our country. This state leads in the production of the silk. Okay. Why the state leads is basically ideal temperature, which is around 16 degrees centigrade to ideal. It has the ideal temperature for the development of the silk. 16 degrees to around 30 degrees centigrade is the ideal temperature. Along with that, there are nurseries which are developed there. Nurseries, licensed seed sellers are there. Licensed seed sellers, that means they are licensed people who sell these worm. And when this is being made, when this larvae are being fed, there are rooms where the temperature is being controlled. So they have these nurseries where this worm is being developed. Secondly, Karnataka is also known for growing mulberry bush. It has this growth of mulberry bush and the bomba throughout the year. Throughout year it is being grown this. So into these conditions, this state leads the production of silk. There are many places where this silk is being developed. Many centers where the silk is being developed. Maybe Bangalore, it may be Mysore. Then we have other states other than this where the silk rearing is being done. So this is the leading producer. There are other southern states where it has been developed. Northeast is known for, especially Assam, is known for the Muga variety of silk. Northeast. And Assam is also known for another variety, Iri. Then there is another variety, that is the Tussar, which is developed in Jharkhand. This is developed in Jharkhand. West Bengal is a state which develops almost all the varieties, that is mulberry as well as non-mulberry. Now try to understand. When we are speaking about silk, we basically classify it into mulberry and non-mulberry. The mulberry silk is the one which is developed on this bush, while this includes Tussar, Iri and Muga. These three varieties. So we actually classify silk into mulberry and non-mulberry silk, but then after classifying it, this happens that these are its three varieties which are developed in different parts of the country. West Bengal, we have said, has both the varieties of silk. Now, what are the problems faced by the people who cultivate this particular crop? So we have problems of the cultivators. when we speak about problems of the cultivators, the first thing that you'll remember is that it faces stiff competition from rayon, from artificial silk. You may say something like rayon, which is developed from wood through chemical reactions. So this is comparatively cheaper. So we face the problem from the manufacturers of silk face problem from this artificial silk. Secondly, the raw silk is being brought from China. Now, if we look at the quality wise, this has a white colored silk, while India has a yellow colored silk. This is of better quality, much stiffer. So people all over, they use this even when they are making a good sari, maybe a Banarasi sari. They need the thread from the white colored silk. So this silk is like the raw material is required for the manufacturing of the cloth. And this is raw silk is brought from the other country, from China. It fluctuates, the price of this fluctuates. So this is a problem faced by the silk manufacturers in India. Then there are machines for testing and grading of silk, which is not done systematically. This testing and grading is not done systematically, because of which also the silk cultivators, they face the problem in the production of the silk. It's an industry which is labor intensive. It requires quite a lot of labor. You have to take the worms, keep them at a definite temperature. Then before it develops into cocoon, boil them into water, and then the cocoon has to be separated. Each one has to be from that, the separation of the thread has to be done, where 2 people are employed in conditions like muga silk. If the worm comes down, it is done not on this artificial temperature, but it's done on the plants itself, on the tree itself. In the bush itself it is being done. And suppose the worm is not able to, comes down the tree, is not able to eat the leaves of this tree, then they have to be very careful, take this worm and take it to the other tree. When it develops into almost pupae, the worms, they start coming down. They have to be collected in the trays and then seen to it that the silk is extracted from them. So it's a labor intensive job. It requires quite a lot of labor in rearing these silkworms, giving them the right quality of leaves, managing the temperature and the humidity, then taking out the thread from it. The process is called as reeling. That process has to be done. Then after that, making the cloth, dyeing it. There are lots of processes involved, and it's a labor intensive job. It requires quite a lot of labor. What basically you need to remember when you are reading about silk is what is sericulture. What is sericulture? Why is Karnataka the leading producer state? Okay. Any 2 centers specifically in Karnataka. You may also remember in Assam and Jharkhand. Okay. Then the 2 types of silk, mulberry silk and the non-mulberry silk. So where your focus will be is what is sericulture. This will be your first thing that you will remember. Then you will remember types of silk, mulberry and non-mulberry silk. What are the varieties of non-mulberry? Mulberry and non-mulberry, varieties of non-mulberry. Okay? And then after that you'll remember why is Karnataka the leading producer state. 2 centers here in Karnataka where silk is being reared. Okay? And then problems of silk cultivators. This is the next thing that you need to remember. I think that's all that you need to remember about silk industry, which is an agro-based industry. This is an agro-based industry. After cotton, textile, sugar, we have the silk as the agro-based. सब बंद कर दीजिए इसको.